I think he can still play. Everyone's like, he's done. He's not done. He's just, over the last 3 years, gotten hurt a lot. So when he's out there, he's not like a shell of himself. Right? There's sort of like a difference. So when Peyton Manning was playing at the end of his career, he was done.
Yeah, he was weekend at Bernie's style, winning a Super Bowl, yeah.
Rob Gronkowski, throughout his career, when he was out there, he was effective. And then he just wasn't out there. Like, right? He was hurt, or he was playing and he was kicking ass. I feel like that's the same thing with Cooper Kupp. He's good when he's out there. The biggest knock on him, though, is he just hasn't been out there enough over the last 3 years. So I'm not bringing him in here as this, like, old mentor. Like, I think he can still play a little bit.
Right, and I acknowledge the room can use that. Like, the Patriots wide receiver room absolutely can use that. They didn't have it last year. People hated the wide receiver coach. All the receivers were mouthing off and thinking they were much better than they were. So the room can use that. But that is a supplemental secondary idea to bringing in a talented player, and you hope they have some of that in their game as well. Not because they can talk shop with Josh McDaniels and handhold the younger receivers in the room. That is not why I'm bringing in Cooper Kupp.
Let me ask you real quick. Cooper Kupp last year played in 12 games, which actually seems high. As somebody who had him in fantasy, maybe he got hurt early in a couple of those games.
He wasn't out there that many times.
12 games definitely seems high, and had a terrible year, right? That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
He had more catches than any Patriot. He had more yards than any Patriot.
Well,
he had more touchdowns than any Patriot.
Don't compare him to Patriots.
I am.
He probably had more in the one game against the Patriots than most of those guys had this year.
He had more catches, yards, and touchdowns than all those guys.
He'd definitely be their best receiver.
He had as many touchdowns as, or no, he had more touchdowns, catches. No, wait, let me say it again. He had the same number as the Patriots' top two receivers combined.
Yeah, that all sounds
right.
And
yet he had a terrible year.
That all sounds right to me.
So here's the thing with Cooper Kupp, though, is you can't add him to this group and then just say, we're all set.
Yeah.
We're good here. I think he would be a tremendous upgrade. And especially if he was your number two. Like at this stage of his career, he's your number two, meaning you're not relying on him as much. He's also probably not going to get all the coverage in the world that you might normally get if he just plucked him down and put him next to Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas. I would take him in a hot second, though, but not just because he's this old, wise guy. I think he still got some game left.
I asked you this yesterday. I want your answer again. Deebo or Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp.
Why?
I think both have injury concerns. I think Cooper Kupp would be a better fit on the team. I don't think he's gonna have any kind of complaints if Drake May doesn't get him the ball when he needs the ball right away, or his usage. Is he running the ball too much? Is he not doing this too much? They both have a lot of wear and tear, right? So it's not just a Cooper Kupp thing. But I think Cooper Kupp, even though we're just kind of clowning on what Bedard was saying, I think he might be able to get more out of the young guys that are in the room right now than, say, Deebo could.
So if it wasn't Josh McDaniels and the offense, I think my answer would be Deebo. But once you knew McDaniels was here, and it was not my pick, it's not who I wanted, it might not have been Vrabel's pick, oh, by the way, which we'll get to. But knowing that he's the play caller, I think Kupp is a good fit for how this offense has tended to run under Josh McDaniels. So I think I'm now on the Kupp side of that, but Deebo's 2 years younger. He does have an injury history, but he played 15 games last year.
Yeah, that's surprising.
And so he's been hurt, and I think sometimes he plays through injuries, but then he's affected on the field, and you're getting a guy who, as you said, a shell of themselves, where they're out there, they're taking snaps, but they're mostly a decoy. I think they've done that a lot in his career.
How are they going to use Deebo, to your point, too? Like, what would they get the most out of him?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Like, does Josh McDaniels, is he so creative where he's going to line up Deebo in the backfield and do this and do that? No, doesn't feel that way. I feel like that's a Shanahan-McVay thing, not a McDaniels thing. But can he get something out of Cooper Kupp in the slot? Yeah, I think he can. So that's my answer on that. Chad Graff caught up with Robert Kraft at the Super Bowl. Caught up with him. This guy seems to have real good lines into ownership.
But my goodness.
Just the only person
they bumped into each other?
I was going to say, the only person that I saw that talked to Robert Kraft in New Orleans, at least out of the local beat writers,
good get,
is Chad Graff, who's had some good intel on Patriots ownership in the past. It's interesting. They just bumped into each other. Bourbon Street. Grabbing a hurricane. I
never know. Oh, that sounds good.
Quote, when we interviewed Mike and we asked him who he might be interested in bringing on, without a pause, his first answer was to bring Josh McDaniels because he thought it would be something very special for Drake. Their experience and chemistry together is very positive. I guess that means McDaniels and Vrabel. I don't think they have much experience in chemistry together.
No.
McDaniels was a coach on offense when Vrabel was a player. They've never been on the same coaching staff.
Yeah.
I think that was a good development. from every way you look at it, I think it's a win-win. It was his decision, meaning Vrabel. Josh is very excited. I hope we get the fruits of the potential positives out of that. He has a pretty good history of developing and dealing with good quarterbacks and developing an offense that can really produce.
Although McDaniels technically was a defensive assistant for the first couple of years.
Oh, this is true.
So,
he came in,
he had probably a little bit more interaction with Vrabel, but not necessarily a ton. But whatever.
And he was also probably mostly grabbing coffees at that stage.
Well, literally picking him up at the airport. Like he told that story.
Fair point. Yeah, when Vrabel signed as a free agent with New England in 2001, McDaniels picked him up at the
20
airport.
years ago.
Do you buy Robert Kraft when he says, when we talked to Mike Vrabel, the first guy he wanted to hire was Josh McDaniels?
So I think it kind of confirms that is not the case. So how I read that is Robert Kraft's first choice was Josh McDaniels. I don't know if he necessarily forced it on him, but he probably wanted to see what Mike Vrabel thought about it. I'm sure he leaned pretty heavily towards, I think this would be great. I know this guy could get us back to where we need to be. We've really kind of fudged it up over the last few years. Ever since he left, actually, the offense has been a disaster. So I highly, highly, highly recommend him, would be my guess.
Yeah.
And Vrabel probably looked at the list. Guys like Tommy Reese was one of his old guys.
He knew Tommy Reese was staying in Cleveland.
Yeah, and he's like, who else was he really going to get? Now, he did get Thomas Brown to be on the staff, so maybe that's who he kind of likes. But,
well, his guy Todd Downing's back. He was available.
Yeah. So a lot of people had started to get on this. I think some of the local guys, some of the national guys started to sort of be like, yeah, this one doesn't really fit in with all the other hires. And I think Robert Kraft kind of heard that noise and was like, no, he picked him. And it's like, I don't think he did.
So Kraft is now on record saying it was Vrabel's first choice, which I'm with you, I don't buy.
So that's a little too much.
And so to me, this is the smoking gun. If you don't buy it, and neither of us do, perhaps you disagree, you can jump in, 617-779-7937. This is part of why it doesn't pass the smell test for me, the smoking gun, if you will. When people say, well, Vrabel's running everything, you feel that way. I still see things like this on the coaching staff, and I go, if Vrabel were really running things, then he would have his own offensive coordinator, and he doesn't. And so that still gives me pause about free agency and what they're going to do with the fourth pick, although I imagine with a quarterback, ownership will be less hands-on with the last year number 3 pick, this year the number 4 pick.
Yeah,
I think they were very hands-on with that pick last year. And that's just a guess. I don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking about a franchise quarterback, ownership's going to be involved. When you're talking about a D lineman or an O lineman or even an edge rusher like Abdul Carter, I don't think they're going to be as involved. But answers like that still make me skeptical about whose team it is and who's running things.
Yeah, I think that's a weird one to me, why he was, because they basically let him clear out the entire coaching staff. Our guy Jeremy Springer is back, but that was more of an Elliott Wolf hire anyway, and the special teams was good. So you had one spot last year that was decent, so he's already under contract, and so you keep him. They kept Gerard Mayo's brother on the strength and conditioning staff.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Also strange, and Ben McAdoo, and they just flipped him over to defense. Other than that, and we talked about this last week, there's 20 new names kind of rolling through here. So they allowed Mike Vrabel to get all kinds of new guys, even another guy to be in the front office, not just all guys that are on the sideline with him. And yet Josh McDaniels obviously kind of sticks out. It definitely seems like more of a Robert Kraft hire. But then again, is it crazy to think he wasn't on – could he have been on Vrabel's list at all? When you think maybe not? If he did a 10-person list.
I think the scenario you brought up is right. Vrabel kind of had a couple of guys in mind, but one got snapped up right away. And Robert Kraft, when he met with him, made it clear he wanted to hire McDaniels, so he went along with it.
And you think about this, until the very end, Bill Belichick in, 20 years, had basically 3 offensive coordinators in 20 years. Mike Vrabel in Tennessee had 4 and 6. I think it was something like that. LaFleur was one and done. Arthur Smith was good. Then he got a job. And then what was it? Downing and
why am I blanking on who the other one was? But yes, he had 4, correct.
Meaning, I don't think he's as married to coordinators as maybe some coaches are, or they don't have this long-term relationship. I think he's all right, bring in some other guy.
The whole reason that I've heard people like McDaniels that he's going to be here for a long time. So we'll see.